Jack Hughes took a major step in his personal play this year, helping carry the New Jersey Devils into a playoff spot after having missed last season. Finishing second in the Metropolitan Division, 5 points up on the Rangers. The two New York-based teams look to face off against each other in the first round. Is this a year where we could see the Devils and their young core take further steps in their development, defeating the New York Rangers after they went all in, acquiring Patrick Kane, Vladimir Tarasenko, Mikkola at the deadline? Or could the Rangers' experience and Vezina goaltender in Igor Shesterkin be too much to handle? Welcome back to Edgework here on the Hammer Betting Network. Back with another playoff preview. Today we've got the New York Rangers, New Jersey Devils. This is going to be an interesting one. These are two teams that we've seen kind of over the last little while as we've been preparing for, close in the standings, chasing each other back and forth. The Devils obviously got off to an incredible start, and then the Rangers, after the trade deadline there, started to close the gap a little bit, but the New Jersey Devils managed to finish out the season staying 5 points ahead of the Rangers, holding it down home ice advantage. And as we see them here, minus 115 favorites to win the series, a 53.3% implied probability against the Rangers, currently sitting plus 100. And you look at some of the series spreads that are now just coming out. The Rangers plus 1.5 minus 205, Devils minus 1.5 plus 171. Joined here to break down the series today, Alex Moretto, Rob Pizzola, as well as So Money here to talk about this one. And Rob, I'm going to go to you first to kind of get some insight on the number here. We've talked about, and all three of you guys have kind of been on the same page throughout the course of the year in terms of where you've been at with the Rangers about this is a fraudulent team and we're not kind of getting behind the Rangers. We can't support where they're at. This could be just a bad team all around. Now you come out and you see them plus 100 against the Devils. There's obviously some things we'll get into in terms of the way that the Devils are built throughout the course of the show today, but you look at that price right away, Rangers plus 100. Is that kind of where you'd expect it to be in this series against the Devils? Is it short, long? Where did you kind of price in the Rangers here, especially considering how you felt about them all season?
So definitely the way that the market has priced these teams over the course of the last month, I'm not surprised at where we sit right now. There's a lot to take into account, though, especially in the playoffs. I think the home ice advantage is big. And if we look at the course of like the last 5 seasons or so, it's steadily been increasing over the course of the playoffs. Last year, we saw teams with more than a 60% goal share in their home games, which is kind of unheard of for playoffs. Typically, it's somewhere in like the 54%. So home ice is starting to be worth more and more, which is kind of what my original lean to the Devils. The tricky thing is the Rangers is, and like anyone who's watched Edgework for the entirety of the season knows that this is a team that constantly outperforms their metrics. It's not only this year, it's last year, it's the year before that. Anyone who's a fan of advanced metrics in hockey is going to look at their expected goals on paper and be like, wow, the Rangers, they stink. I'm going to bet against them. And if you've done that, you're in a poorhouse. If you continuously do that, there's something about this team that something's not being captured properly. And their actual goals always outweigh their expected goals. Maybe it's just good shooters. Could be Igor Shesterkin as well. But I would caution people from just looking at the Rangers on paper and saying, oh, their expected goals are low, this is going to be a breeze. Because if we look at these two teams over the course of, let's say, since the trade deadline, and we take every team that's made the playoffs, the Devils would be second in expected goal share at 5 versus 5. The Rangers would be dead last in 16th. So it's very easy to say, oh, the Devils are going to dominate these guys, are going to run them out the rink. They might do that, but you have a goaltending advantage on the other side. You have a Rangers team that constantly comes up with timely goals. So personally, I see a little bit of value in New Jersey, but I'm reluctant to go hard on this series because the Rangers, they've done this for a long time now, right? They're like the kryptonite, so to speak, especially for me as a bettor, where you just come to a realization of like, hey, maybe this team is just way better than I give them credit for. I watch them play. They don't look like they're getting run out of the rink every game. So what are we missing here overall? And I'm really fascinated with these series because subjectively speaking, remove like the analytics from the equation, but just put the Devils roster next to the Rangers roster side by side and match them up. And you're like, this should be a really good series. Like these are fairly evenly matched teams, 3 deep lines, defensemen, you might give like a little bit of an edge. I mean, you could depending on who you talk to, could go either way as well. But ultimately, I think the price should be closer to like minus 125, minus 130 for the Devils. But I'm not like the analytics guy that's just going to completely dismiss the Rangers here. As I think a lot of people will look at the series, break it down, and say, oh yeah, like Devils are going to run them out of the rink.
And Alex, you kind of come into the same position here in terms of where the price is at. But I mean, I know you've had some strong opinions about the Rangers so far this season. And don't forget that I do have a clip of Rob pulled together for in case things go sideways for you guys to pull out for the Edgework Twitter account. But I mean, I've talked to you guys about these prices as we've seen things coming out and initial reactions and stuff. And despite the fact that you kind of were in the same boat analytically based on where the Rangers were and thoughts on them there, the price kind of seemed to make sense to get behind the Rangers at plus 100 against the Devils. Is that fair to say for you?
Yeah, I hate that, I've come down so hard on the Rangers so many times this season, and now here I am, like, with the chance to put my money where my mouth is and fade this team in the playoffs, and I'm not going to do it. I think this is a hard series to make a number for. Like, it's going to be fascinating in the sense where you have like the analytical darlings that are the Devils versus a Rangers team that consistently outperforms their bad underlying metrics, and like, I think Rob touched on it already enough. And, he said it very well that like, it's easy to write off this Rangers team. But I think, and Lieboff mentioned this yesterday a little bit too in the Leafs preview, when it comes to pricing a playoff series, I think we have to weigh the qualitative side a bit more than we do any other time throughout the regular season, or, even in like anything else in sports. Like when pricing an NHL playoff series, that stuff matters a lot more. I know, and like, in a game-to-game basis in futures markets, you can kind of run your numbers and come up with a percentage. I don't think you can just blindly do that here and say, well, you know what, the Devils, like, they're going to run away with this series. There's endless variables and, the narrative-y stuff that we kind of like scoff at a lot. I think they matter here. I think they matter quite a bit. Doesn't mean we throw numbers out the window, right? Like there's like the two sides of the coin where there's the analytics people who are going to be like, none of that stuff matters. It's all noise. And then you have the people that are like the old school, like, give me the heaviness and the grit and it's the playoffs and the experience. And then they don't care about the analytics. I don't care about the numbers, like you have to fall somewhere in the middle here. And I think that while the analytics side favors the Devils quite a bit, the Rangers have the edge in so many of those intangible spots. And that's kind of scaring me. And I honestly, I think I give a little bit of an edge to the Rangers here.
So, Money, are you falling in the middle here?
Kind of. So I do think that the Devils should be favored, obviously, and they should have the distinct advantage here. I'm not ever going to completely write off a team that has Igor Shesterkin in net. So that's the first thing. I do see the value in the Devils in minus 115. Obviously, there's questions I have with them, but just based on how these teams match up, I think that the Rangers leave a lot to be desired on the defensive end, and we've seen that continuing throughout the season. Igor, throughout the season, there's been times where he's had a dip in play, and when that happens, then we see the Rangers give up goals in bunches, and this is a Devils team that can score in bunches, right? So I think that if there's any sort of dip in either the Rangers' defensive play and or Igor Shesterkin, the Devils should have success to get the goals and mask their own deficiencies that may come up in goal as well.
Right. Now, in terms of where the price is at, how would you kind of base it at what we've seen here initially, plus 100 Rangers, minus 115 Devils? Is this close to where you'd see it? Do you see value on either side at this point in time?
I do see value in the Devils. I think they're a little bit short, not too much. I had them at about minus 123 to 126. I had them. So at minus 115, that is a play for me.
So very similar to where Rob was at in that.
Yeah.
Now, we see some of these series spreads starting to come out. If you guys are looking outside of, okay, here's a series bet. Okay, who's going to win this series? You look beyond that. Now you're going to start to look at some of the other ones. We're obviously talking about derivatives of that price and how they filter out beyond there. But I mean, Alex, is there anywhere that you start to see value in some of these prices that are going to come out? Is there anywhere that's caught your eye already on these spreads where you'd say, hey, that could be a look just in terms of New Jersey being favored -1.5 on some of these, maybe flipping them around the other way. Rangers -1.5. Has any of those markets caught your eye yet?
I would probably look to like a Rangers -1.5 more so, just because you're getting a bit of a bigger price, and I think that I can see a clearer path to the Devils getting sort of blown out a bit more in this series than I can the Rangers getting blown out. I think Shesterkin is still good enough to steal multiple games in this series, no matter what. I don't see the Devils running away with this by any means. I think they're going to have to work very hard for every win. Whereas I think if, with the Devils, like, we haven't seen them face any adversity yet this year, right? They started the year so well that they were basically just comfortably in a playoff spot. And even when they had their lulls during the season, it didn't seem to matter because, this team's going to be in the playoffs. They already overachieved whatever the expectations were coming into the year. Everything's okay. Now it's like, okay, now the expectations are like suddenly heightened and you haven't gone through any adversity. And what happens is when you're, maybe down 2-0 in a game one, you're out shooting the Rangers 31-13 and you find yourselves down 2-0. Like, how are they going to respond to that? I can see, a bit of a young, inexperienced team getting frustrated, start overthinking things, you start changing your game a little bit, and then things go haywire. So, like, maybe I can see a clearer path to a Rangers -1.5, even a Rangers -2.5, something like that.
Right. Is there anything for you, Rob, here where you start to look outside value-wise on spreads, series spreads?
So I like what Dom said in the first video of this series where we're breaking down Leafs and Lightning, and he probably caught a lot of flack for saying the Leafs are, betting the Leafs to win 4-0 in that series. But I think, like, expecting the unexpected and buying into that type of stuff is worthwhile in these series. Most people, the average fan, they just assume, oh, the Devils, Rangers, they're so evenly matched, like this is going 6 or 7. But we see time and time again in the NHL that there's so much randomness in the sport. And you see stuff where Columbus beats Tampa Bay in a sweep in 4 games. You see stuff that just you would never have expected because the puck breaks a certain way over a small sample size. So typically when I'm looking at stuff like this, I'm looking for like some sort of outcome that I think is realistic and a higher payout, but like tend to gravitate towards a team winning in 4 or 5 games. Now, I haven't played derivatives in this series, but if I were to, I would bet the Devils to win in 4 or 5 games, potentially on both of those. And one thing people don't realize either, you would think motivation's at its highest in the playoffs, which it is. But there are such things as series effects, and they happen across all sports. This happens in the NBA, it happens in baseball, happens in the NHL. But if you go up 3-0 in a series, the likelihood that you're going to win that 4th game increases drastically because there's like this mentality of a team kind of realizing, okay, writing's on the wall, we're done. And this has been, a thing over decades now in sports. So you get that kind of variance that works into your favor as well when you're taking some sort of price where it's not like the true price of the actual game in game 4, where it was in game 3 or game 2 or whatever. So expect the unexpected is kind of like my motto. You can swing and miss a lot, but sometimes it just takes hitting one of these over the course of 10 bets and you've cashed, right? So tough one for sure in this series. I think the best bet for the series is just the Devils -115 or in that range, anywhere in the -115, -120 range, rather than the derivatives. But I could, if I was going to play something else, it would be Devils in 4 or Devils in 5.
So, Money, what would be like the biggest concern for you if you were to try to get behind the Devils in this series? Because, we have been pretty high on the Devils all season long. It's been something along the Edgework shows and the daily previews and picks that we've done where we've gotten behind them in a lot of different spots. Or earlier on, we started to get to a point where we were like, hey, we would get behind the Devils, but this price is just a little too far just because of how good they had been playing at that point. The market started pushing them out of range for us. But now you do get into the playoffs. What Alex touched on, some of that does matter here. The experience, some of the size, the toughness, like some of these things, maybe they're blown a little out of proportion, but they do matter when it comes to the playoffs. And some of the guys on the Rangers, they were at least there last year. They've seen it. You had Patrick Kane. He's been there. Tarasenko, he's been there. They've done it. They know. They've been around. The Devils team is younger. This is they missed the playoffs last year. You get a huge year to Jack Hughes. It propels you into a playoff spot. Now you get dragged into that spot. Where do you see concerns for the Devils where things could go south for them?
My concern for the Devils is a combination of what Alex and Rob mentioned. Rob mentioned the series effects, and Alex mentioned that when you are in a game, is it really out of the realm of possibility when you're playing the Rangers that you are out shooting a team 30-10 and you're down 2-0? How many times have we seen that? Right. So now when that happens and you've played that kind of game where you should win, and now you find yourself down 1-0, right? And then that goes into Rob's point that, well, if you are down 1-0, are you changing the way that you play? How are you going to respond to that as the series goes on? I am comforted with I would suspect a guy like Lindy Ruff would already know all that, and like he's like a perfect kind of coach to like keep a young team in line. So I would assume that would happen. So that would be my first concern. My second concern with the Devils is what if the goaltending completely tanks, right? Like now if Blackwood is not playing Boston, he's a pumpkin, right? If or like he can be, right? If and now you're relying on Schmid and Vanacek, right? So like Vanacek should start, but I mean, with all three of those guys, I don't have a large enough sample to be confident that yes, these guys are going to be good enough. They're not going to be better than Igor, but good enough to be able to win that series.
I don't. Maybe it's just me, but like, does this Devils team not remind you guys so much of those early Capitals teams that had the young core of Ovechkin, Backstrom, Semin, Mike Green, guys like that, and then they had like the vets mixed in, like Kozlov, Tom Poti, they had Fedorov for a while, Michael Nylander, and then they had like the mixed bag in net where they would jump from like Theodore to Varlamov and then Hue, and they couldn't quite figure that out. Eventually, they got over the hump, but like it took some time. They had to earn their stripes, and I don't know. It just feels like I've seen this series so many times before now. And I mean, at least for me, that's enough to keep me off the Devils at the very least.
It does have a little bit of that vibe. I get it. But I've gone back and forth with this a while. Like the thing with the Rangers that I've noticed, particularly in watching them, especially since the trade deadline, a ton of chances fall to Chris Kreider. And really, nobody else generates a ton of looks for them. It's like that one guy. You watch the Devils, and it's like every shift, there's somewhat. It feels like their core is more well-rounded. Let's put it that way. In that you can get scoring out of Eric Holla on any given night. You go up and down the list of their roster, but Hughes, Heischer, Meyer, Bratt, even Tatar, Mercer, like the guys are around the net consistently. And that's not to say the Rangers don't have great players, because they obviously do. Like they have great players. It just seems they're so much more reliant on Kreider to generate that offense for them. And it's like, if Kreider has a bad series or he disappears, I think they're going to get rolled personally. Mm-hmm. And even like this is reflected. I didn't even know this, but I just pulled this up right now. So if we look at since the trade deadline for the New York Rangers, Chris Kreider has 8.91 expected goals in 20 games. 8.91. Second highest on the team is Artemi Panarin at 5.41. It's 3.5 goal difference. I don't know that you'll find that with any other team in the league. Whereas if we look at the trade deadline for the Devils, Jack Hughes, 10.83. Nico Heischer, 10.76. Timo Meyer, 8.86. Jesper Bratt, 8.72. Thomas Tatar, 7.89. Like it's way more well-rounded for that team. So that's why I subsequently lie towards the Devils. And honestly, just talking it through in my head right now, if you completely disagree with me and you like the Rangers in the series, you can find Chris Kreider to be the top goal scorer in the series at like 6-1, 7-1 type of prices. There's no way I would bet the Rangers in the series and not make that bet as well. Because I think
even if the Rangers don't win the series, Kreider can win that, right? Just you talked about depth scoring, right? The Rangers can spread those goals out, whereas I mean the Devils can spread the goals out, and even if the Rangers lose the series, they still get a bunch from Kreider.
Yeah. Right. All right. We'll close this one out with two last parts here. So we'll go best bet in series, our favorite bet in the series, and then prediction. So, Moretto, we'll start with you. Favorite bet in the series, our favorite way to bet this series. How would you go about it?
I would probably go Rangers -1.5, and I'm still kind of waiting for more shops put those numbers out, but like, I mean, I believe you can get some decent prices there. You can get them at, so around 2-1, which is kind of what I was expecting. You can get them around 2-1 at -1.5 games. That's probably what I do. I don't love, like, I don't think you're getting enough value with the Rangers. Even like there's some +110s out there at the rec books. I still don't think that's like a good bet necessarily, but there's enough here to keep me off of the Devils. I just don't really have interest in the Devils here. Like, I've been burned by this Rangers team so many times. I can just see how this is going to play out already. And I just have no interest being on the Devils.
Rob, what would be the best way you would go about betting this series? Would it just be strictly Devils to win the series -115?
Yes, but like that's a small edge. I mean, if you're looking for an alternative way to play it, most points in the series, Nico Hischier at 9-1 is one that I would look at. He gets the PP one time since the trade deadline. A lot, like you look at the amount of assists he's got, most of those are primary assists. He only has 4 secondary assists since the trade deadline as well. So like he's a guy that's in and around it. He'll benefit from the Jack Hughes points on the power play as well because he's part of that. Like the gap between the way that Hughes is priced at +350 to Nico Hischier at +900, considering they're both generating at like the exact same expected goals rate since the deadline. I think that's way too big of a gap. So Nico Hischier 9-1 for most points. Obviously, you can shop around. Always recommend trying to get the best price, but I would play 9-1, and that's widely available.
And so, Money, how about you? What would your best bet in this series be? Your favorite bet?
I'm on the Devils. I'll be on them at that -115. I think that's enough of an edge for me at those prices, and I think that's the way that I'll be playing it.
All right, and final part of this video here. Betting aside, predictions in the series. The Devils, the Rangers. Alex, we'll start with you. Prediction for Devils, Rangers.
I will say 4-1 Rangers. Things go south early for the Devils, and they can't quite recover. And it's a quick exit, but they'll be back next season with the better run.
Rob?
Devils in 7. No team wins 2 games in a row.
Okay, and so Money?
I'll say Devils in 6.
Yeah, I'm on Devils in 6 here as well. That's the side that I'm going with. I think I don't know. I think the Devils might be able to get it done, get past the Rangers, as long as the Rangers don't face 6 goaltenders or 7 goaltenders in the first round again, and you got a guy eating spicy pork in between the intermissions and the overtime. Baby. Then I think the Devils might be okay. They might be able to win this one out. So, hey, if it's going to be a fun series, it's going to be exciting nonetheless. But if you are looking for more series previews, if you're looking for more breakdowns, prices, best bets, all that kind of stuff, you can find it here on the Edgework HQ YouTube channel. This is just one of many videos that we've already done. You can check out the Islanders Hurricanes preview. You can check out the Oilers Kings preview, as well as the Leafs Lightning preview that have already come out here on the Edgework HQ YouTube channel, and you can expect much more coming over the next couple of days here, so make sure to subscribe, like this video as well. Let us know what are your picks, your predictions on these games, on these series. Give us your best bets in the comments below. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Alex, Rob, So Money, thank you guys for the insights here today. Appreciate it. To everyone out there, enjoy the playoffs and good luck on your bets.